Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the temple. Once again, I am your high priestess, Erin Sunniva. As we enter this temple, I welcome the presence of our higher selves. I welcome the presence of the highest consciousness into this space, highest love, highest compassion. I ask for the divine to hold us in the light today, and I welcome the benevolent teachers and weavers of the divine plan to grace this space, to support the expansion and sharing of spiritual experience and education. This is the place where we witness the work that we talk about. We can be present for the unfolding of hearts returning to their true medicine. You may be called to this place today because you are seeking connection to your divinity, or you are seeking a space where you can truly dive into your inherent perfection. It's time to walk the path of love and participate in the restoration of the divine plan on earth. Welcome, welcome, everyone. And so it is. And I am so excited, so pleased to invite and welcome beloved sister Carolee Beckham. Welcome. Welcome to the temple.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I would love to. Like Erin said, my name is Carolee, and I am a mother to 4 children. I am a Magdalene priestess. I grew up Mormon, actually, and leaving Mormonism was an important part of my journey of stepping into my priestess path. And I am an Aries sun, Cancer rising, Aquarius moon. So there's a lot there, but I am in divine union with my beloved, and together we steward our children and our home and our destiny path. We do a lot of alchemical work. We work with the cosmos. I'm an astrologer, and a seeker at heart of the mysteries.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's such a wonderful honor to know you and Britain, and to also know that you left the Mormon church together, that you didn't have to sever your relationship in order to honor yourself. You know, that you were both brought together for divine purpose to, to also escort the two of you out of there for your for your benefit, for your children's benefit, and for our benefit too, so we can receive your medicine and not be within confines, right?
Yeah, it was the beautiful thing, is the path of divine union moves in interesting ways, right? Like, we are both so grateful that, yes, that we left together, and that we were able to navigate when we were integrating, deconstructing, exiting, both of us being 6th generation Mormons. It really actually was our relationship that started to sever our relationship to the church, right? Like, it was the catalyst. We had a lot of pain, a lot of difficulties and challenges in our union, and it was trying to heal those wounds that opened our eyes. And so it was like this deep alchemical process. I'm honestly, in a lot of ways, amazed that we're together still, blown away at the depth and the love that we hold and the darkness that we've traversed. But really, that was the path. The path was to descend, and we both triggered that awakening in each other through huge challenges. But the fact that we came to a choice point again and again and again, and still in those moments of, are we to be together still, or can we do this still together, really anchored us deeper and deeper in our purpose and in our love.
Wonderful. So tell me, sister, how did you come upon Mary Magdalene, and how did she change everything for you?
Oh, so, my whole body just like, I was deep actually in the writing portal yesterday, and pretty the title of my little essay that I was writing was How I Met Mary Magdalene. So it's such a timely question. The the essence of my journey with her, again, given that I was raised in Mormonism is a culture that really eats and breathes and lives the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? So like according to Mormons, like what that is to them, and so I grew up doing 3 hours of church every Sunday. I grew up doing scripture study in the home as a foundation. I grew up doing seminary in high school, really learning. I mean, it was deep scriptural study. I served a mission for the Mormon Church, which was 18 months of my life. I paid for it. I was in service. I was teaching the gospel according to the ways the Mormons frame it. So I have this like really solid foundation. We prayed over every single meal. Like the way in which I was raised, it was a deep integrative like walk with Christianity. Like I knew I was taught from a very young age to memorize scriptures. I had to read my scriptures every day. I was shamed if I didn't. It was like this real intense walk and this knowing. We had rules, even like what kind of content we could watch on Sunday. We would only watch things of a spiritual nature, videos about Jesus and things. And so I had this strong like foundation of Jesus and God. In Mormonism, we call God Heavenly Father. And it was like this strong focus on Heavenly Father and Jesus, Heavenly Father and Jesus. In fact, if you go to like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that's the official name. If you go to their websites, their sources, they literally say there's not much known about Heavenly Mother, and we're discouraged to seek her out. There's like actual quotations about that, right? So it was almost like she's too special that Heavenly Father is like protecting his wife, but also polygamy is something that's in the history of Mormonism. So there was this kind of understanding growing up that maybe part of the reason why we didn't talk about Heavenly Mother was because there were Heavenly Mothers. Like there were multiple wives to the one God who is the Father of Jesus. Right. So there was a lot of mystery and a lot of unknown, and we were just supposed to accept it. And the patriarchy is really, really strong in Mormonism. It's like there's a prophet of the church or a president of the church. There's 12 apostles, like Jesus called 12 apostles. All of the leaders of the church are always men. Men are speaking, men are guiding, men are in those positions of authority. So as I began to deconstruct all of that, I couldn't leave the divine, even though I left religion, and I wasn't certain how to find the divine outside of the context of, it was really framed like this is the safe place. You also, growing up, we were also strongly discouraged about reading any sources that came from outside of the church. So I had to really only lean into the men and the leaders and what they said. And then again, what they said about the divine feminine was, we discourage you from trying to find her. So all of that.
Well, how did that feel like in that place? Like, how did that feel for you?
I didn't know any better. Right. I was very much like I didn't know that it didn't feel good, but I also didn't have I was told to not like let my feelings lead. Right. Even now in there's a quote from a recent church leader in Mormonism. It was like, doubt your doubts before you doubt your
Don't
faith.
question a thing.
So there was this deep program of like, I longed to know the Divine Mother.
Yeah.
And I was drawn to certain things. I mean, I lived in France as a 20-year-old. I did a study abroad. I was very called to Paris. And I actually came home from Paris having been to the the Magdalene, like the Magdalene church that's there. And I came home with the little icon of Mother Mary. It still has a place on my altar to this day. And coming home with that little icon was very contrary to like the way I was programmed, the way I was told. Like I was told like icons are not, you shall not worship idols. There was a lot of pushback against that. Right. But there was something ancient that I can see now was awakening in me even then. Yeah. And I needed to walk in these sacred spaces. And when I returned to France at 40, I was like, it was a true like homecoming. I could see I was being prepared even when I was still within this sort of patriarchal box, you know? After we left the church in 2019, I started reading other books. I read Neil Donald Walsh's work on conversations with God, and that helped me kind of think outside of the box. And then I found Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now. Like I found some texts that I avoided throughout my life because I had been told to avoid them. And then I had a sister who also is an ex-Mormon, a mother to 6, who had already found Mary Magdalene and who Mary Magdalene truly is. She came to me at the end of 2020. Like she was living in Oregon. She visited Utah. She stopped by to say hi. And I remember distinctly, she sat on my couch and she said, "Can I tell you about Mary Magdalene? And like who she really is?" And again, remember, like in the context of Christianity and Mormonism, Mary Magdalene was the whore that had 7 demons cast out of her. She wasn't anywhere close to an equal. And the way she's depicted in that world still doesn't hold the weight and the authority and the mantle of her purpose. Right. So in that moment, all of a sudden, things started to just just my energy started to buzz. And she introduced me to Megan Watterson's work, The Mary Magdalene Revealed. And I realized at that moment, getting that work in my hands, I was like, it was like this moment of awareness. I have only ever been hearing about the divine from the male perspective. And I'd never listened from the feminine. So I made a commitment that I like swore off all gurus and masculine leadership. And I was like, I'm going on a deep dive. I'm only reading books by women about their search for the divine. And I put on the red thread and I haven't taken it off since. And, you know, because of my strong foundation about Jesus and about the scriptures and about Christianity, when I finally learned the truth of Mary Magdalene, it just made everything just went, and I was able to see the truth that was there and see what was hidden and keeping me hidden. And it like Mary Magdalene woke me up and brought clarity to my life and gave me the relationship with the divine that I was being prepared for my whole life. Yeah. So I hold a lot of gratitude actually for my Mormon upbringing, and even more gratitude that I'm no longer in it.
Right. Right. Wow. So where did the Venusian priestesshood enter your field?
So my journey began in at the end of 2020, deepening into works like Mary Magdalene Revealed. That year led me into, I started a book club that I called the Red Thread Book Club. And we met online via Zoom every month, and books just started to intuitively come into our field, right? And we read things like Braiding Sweetgrass, Witch by Lisa Lester, If Women Rose Rooted, which is by Sharon Blackie. It's a Celtic women's rising.
Writing that down.
That one was amazing for me because I do have Celtic ancestry. And so that was, so much of my spiritual lineage had been overtaken by the Mormon lineage. My ancestors left the Celtic Isles as Mormons. They joined the church in the early days of the church, and they traveled on ship to America, and then they traveled by wagon to Utah, and they settled Utah, right? So my spiritual lineage was all about being a Utah Mormon pioneer instead of like this embodied divine feminine earth connection, which is where I find myself now. But there were threads of that in my ancestry. So by reading If Women Rose Rooted, that really gave me context into mythos, into my lineage in a way that I was so hungry for. And then we started by 2022, we were still really deep in deconstructing trauma and pain. The catalyst that had broken my husband and I, like shattered the illusion of the patriarchy, was actually infidelity. He had been repeatedly unfaithful throughout various levels within our partnership. And before we even left the church, we actually went to the church to heal that wound. Oh, wow. That was back in 2018. And we did a full year-long penance program where they called it disfellowshipment. He couldn't do certain things. He couldn't hold call. He couldn't pray. He couldn't do all these different things in public and the church, for an entire 12-month period to repent, to make amends. And that experience showed me that I wasn't held at all. Yeah. What I thought I would gain when I sat there at the beginning of it was definitely not what I gained at the end of it. Right. So all of this was preparatory work to guide me into my own priestess path. And there was a lot of wounding with my body, a lot of wounding with his body, wounding from our childhood, wounding about our sexuality and the sacredness of it, our embodiment. There were all these layers that we had to excavate. And ultimately, we ended up in the fall of 22. We sold our house. We were living in Utah. We sold our house. We sold all of our furniture. And we moved our family to Bali. We have 4 kids. And we just were we're selling everything and we're off. We're out of here. So we moved to Bali and we started with a month-long immersive yoga teacher training. That's how we both he and I did this training. And it was really beautifully held, an entire month immersion, really studying yoga from the spiritual perspective, less about technical that. It was more of let's read the Bhagavad Gita. Let's drop into the spiritual practice of being one and really moving in that way. And that was really preparatory. By the time we left Bali 5 months later, we knew we were being called to something greater and that we were going to walk this path of the spiritual pilgrim, seeking an inner reclamation of all of the things that we needed. But it was around that time in Bali, from the yoga, from the healing, from the integration of my wounding, that all of a sudden I felt this call to a priestess initiation. And I wasn't sure how to access it. And I found some teachers in Bali, but it felt rushed. It wasn't quite aligned. And so the last full moon before we took off, which would be a really beautiful spiritual pilgrimage that went to all the holy places that our bodies really needed to have these activations, I had a self-initiation. I went to the shorelines of Bali. I brought white and red roses. I had my menstrual blood. There were 13 roses, and I sat there with the goddess on the shores of Bali, and I dedicated the next 13 cycles of my moon cycles to the goddess and invited her to work with me and to teach me and to guide me to where I needed to be and what I needed to know and what I needed to remember. So
that's so beautiful. That I can imagine that, just perhaps beautiful, perhaps painful, the extraction of your entire life in that place. Bali being very spiritual land, spirit is so present there.
Yeah.
The people of Bali are so, like, there's no separation between spirit, earth, and self. In my very long distance observation of them, I've never been to Bali, but I've always been, just very reverent to how they hold themselves. That they have, national days of grieving, and that they have national, spiritual holidays ish. I'm sure they don't call it that, but so I can imagine also that you going directly there to this very sacredly held island, and you're allowed, like, I almost want to just cry thinking about it. Like, after all of that confinement, what was that like for you?
It was profound. It was so moving. To see, I had been raised to judge other spiritual paths as being close, but not quite in alignment with truth. Mm-hmm. As a missionary for the Mormon Church, I literally taught people time and time again that the only way they could access the kingdom of heaven was through baptism into Mormonism, right? And so there was this strong, like, my eyes, had I gone to Bali as a strong believing Mormon, I was just really programmed to, like, look at it of like, oh, that's so nice that they do their devotion, but to still judge it as not being quite accessible to the divine. And instead, I was completely blown away at the reverence, at the rhythm, at the devotion, and especially at the honoring of both spirits, right? They would give offerings daily to the spirits under and the spirits above. Yeah. And, in my own upbringing, it was like, oh, no, we need, the Holy Ghost tells us the good things in life. We've got to focus on the good things. We can't, like, descend into the darkness, descend and
you
honor.
You can't have a relationship with the shadows.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I saw a beautiful devotional relationship with the shadows embodied. They have this ceremonial days. There's like 11 days. It's called Galugan in, like, January timeframe, where they believe that all the ancestors and all the spirits come back and are, like, very visceral and real and present on the island for these 11 days. And so they have lots of ceremonies. They make these really beautiful long, like bamboo things that stretch over, and they're very intricate. We lived in Ubud at this time, right in the complex of this, like, traditional Balinese family who would do their prayers at their little temple shrines, and watched. I had this whole, like, photo journey that I did of documenting this beautiful Balinese man as he built his, I think it's called a penjor, if I remember correctly. He built it, and then they set it up, and you can just walk down the streets, and it's just like, oh, you're just like
all the different families, different, like, offerings.
And it's a place for them to offer to the ancestors, to offer to the spirits, right? And it was so beautiful to watch. A lot of their fabric in their ritual wear has, like, checkered patterns.
Yeah, there's a lot of weaving.
The weaving and the checkers were all about, like, there's the darkness and the light, and it's one. It's one. It's together, and so that was so beautiful to, like, deepen into this reverence and this cultural. I mean, they have lunar ceremonies. Their calendar is very, like, lunar based, and there are moments where different locations around the island kind of have their community, their culture celebrations are not always synced up with the other sort of communities. They have their unique ones. And sometimes you're like, I can't get anywhere because the road is completely blocked as people are slowly moving to the temple for ceremony. It's one of...
You just have to surrender to what's happening. Yeah.
Before we left, I was invited to attend one of these temple ceremonies, and they were amenable to me bringing my, like, nice big camera, and I was able to take some beautiful pictures inside their temple space. And Yeah, like in some of these different, and watching them with their offerings really taught me a lot about how I could enhance and improve my relationship with the unseen, and what do my offerings look like do I bring adequate offerings. Like, it was a really beautiful way to like learn how
Yeah.
to be in devotion to the dark and the light.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So where are you now with your
Yeah.
offerings and your work?
Yeah, um so much of my life is just really held in my connection with the divine. And this is like so fitting, given like how I was raised to be in spiritual conversation on a daily basis. Like, again, I'm grateful for where I've come from, because it really does hold me where I'm at now. And then as we traveled the world, after we left Bali, we went to France, England, Ireland, Scotland, and Egypt, um, trusting that we were being guided. I mean, we were like literal spiritual pilgrims,
Yeah.
and parents to 4 children, and homeschooling and world schooling, and doing all these things, right? And so all of that's the foundation to what I'm now offering. I
Mm.
know what it's like to stand in sacred places. I
Yeah.
know what it's like to be called to lands that don't just hold frequencies, they activate remembrance. That's part of
Right.
the reason why we need to go to these places and not
Right.
just like think about it. Like, when
Yeah.
we literally stand in certain spots in France, in Ireland, in England, in Scotland, our bodies remember an ancient knowing. And
And
so,
it's so valuable for the diaspora,
yeah,
like the these white-bodied people who are like disoriented. We're born on this continent and told that, our people stole this land. Well, what are we supposed to do about it? We're supposed to remember where our people came from in the first place, you know
exactly.
and even if we have, our ancestors came here a couple hundred years ago. For me, on my mother's side, her father's lineage were on the Mayflower 400 years ago. How do I repair that? I have ancestors that were at the original Thanksgiving, the very first. My ancestors were there. How
Yeah.
do I reconcile that and, you know, feel good about living on Ute, Paiute, Northern Arapaho land? How do I, you know? And so this is like, because I've had the privilege of being of attending Native American ceremonies, and I've felt welcome and unwelcome in those places. I recognize that I am responsible for returning to my own indigeneity. No
Yes.
matter how long or far away that is, I'm still connected to it. And
Exactly.
yeah, so the first time I set my feet in Ireland, it was like a spell was lifted from my entire being, And in France as well, it was actually going to the Valley of the Cross, where Rennes le Chateau, Rennes le Ban, and Mary's Valley, basically. It was actually very jarring for my system.
Mm.
Because of the context, I wasn't really with the group that I was in with my former teacher. I was a co-facilitator while also being there for the first time, which is a little bit challenging for
Yeah.
me to actually have my own personal experience. So I had a lot of wounds just like torn open that I had to heal upon my return, and just be really present to the fact that there is something still needing repair. And every time I return, there's a new level of repair. There's a new level of return. There's a new essence that comes home.
Yeah, exactly. The book, If Women Rose Rooted,
Yeah.
really actually helped me anchor into, because I was really contending with, I'm on, being in Utah was challenging for me. My ancestors colonized Utah. They took it from the indigenous, right? They're like, there's some deep, dark energies that I've had to sit with. And in Women Rose Rooted, it really talked about returning to our own indigenous ways, like claiming our own spiritual lineage and ancestry, and standing in France, standing in Ireland, standing in Scotland, and even in Egypt. Like there was this ancient activation of personal gnosis that I could have gained. I mean, I gained a fragment of it through books and study and connection with others, but it wasn't until I stood in these places and the energies of the land started to transmit messages, the downloads, the knowing, the connection to source and my ancestry, they really started to come online. So my purpose in my life now is really, these are journeys that we really need to go. We need to walk. We need to move our feet, like become pilgrims of our own right. And being in a container with other people is amazing. Going solo is amazing. But the point is having the courage to move, having the courage to say, I'm going to go. Is something that I'm a huge advocate, a huge proponent of. While we were living, we like literally moved to France for 3 full months because that was the extended amount of time that I could have this visa. I was like, I'm going to be there for the full time. And we positioned ourselves, this was back as a family, we positioned ourselves in the south of France, outside of Toulouse in Cathar country, in this beautiful little like acre oasis of this farm in the middle of like medieval villages. And the reason I went there is because the mountain Bugarash was calling to me, and I couldn't make sense of it, right? When you're called on pilgrimage, sometimes you cannot make sense of where you're being called to, whether it's a program being guided, or a self-initiated pilgrimage. Trust. I had to learn how to trust where my body was saying, this is where you need to be. And so the first time I went to France as a pilgrim, deeply connected to the Magdalene, took me to Bugarash, to the sacred mountain. And Rennes-les-Bains, Rennes-les-Chateaux, and all of those places. I went there actually with Leela. It was a 3-day, like sister only, like just the two of us dropped in. About a month-ish later, Britain returned with me because he was at home with the kids in our house in the south of France. So then I brought him back down, and we had a very beautiful divine union connection, held by the sacredness of the mountain there, and went and saw more places. That was, again, in 2023. And then I was able to return again to France this last summer in 2025, with Missy, the woman who originally sat on my couch and said, let me tell you about the Magdalene.
Oh, I love it.
Missy and I was like, Missy, I feel like it's time, we need to go. And I hadn't yet been to like Saint Baume or the Cave of Eggs or Saint Marie de la Mer. Some of those other places had yet to be in my physical experience in this lifetime. So we were able to go there. But this robe that I'm wearing here that has the oversized hood, this is my Mary Magdalene priestess robe that I designed and manufactured. It came through after our travels, after we landed in Colorado, at the end of an 18-month-long pilgrimage with our family. Because, again, we did Bali, France, England, Ireland, Scotland, Egypt, and then boom, we came back to the States. I was in meditation and I felt Mary Magdalene really clearly. And she was like, make my robe. And it needs to have this oversized hood, and it needs to, be red. And so I started, this robe took 16 months of time to create, to craft, to connect with the manufacturer, to commission the artist. There's the,
can you stand up and show it to us?
We show, let's see. So let's see how I can scoot this back.
So this robe is made for the Sisterhood of the Rose, right?
Okay.
We have the moon phases and the ecliptic cycle of Venus, or the Venus cycle, I should say.
Yeah, the Venus cycle. And it has this belt. So like it like
so it can be open.
Organic.
Love it. Yeah.
It's this
I have worn this robe. It's delicious. It's made with organic cotton.
Yeah.
It's incredibly soft. It's warm. It's inviting. And I love how you can tie it and keep the back open. Yeah. That's brilliant. Yeah.
So this was a direct transmission. Mary Magdalene was like, make it. So I was like, I've never designed clothing before.
Yeah.
Like I am an artist, but not a textile artist, but I had this beautiful relationship with a friend of mine from high school who has a knitting machine, and she was knitting blankets and things. And so I was like, can you knit? I wanted the pattern to be woven
right
in the fabric, not printed on, it's woven. Yeah. And the intention was made because as we were in Egypt, as we were in these sacred places, there's really something profound about being in ritual wear, like high consciousness attire as you go into these sacred places. And I had experienced that firsthand. And so I made the robe, and then the robe, one day I was sitting in my temple and I had the hood over my head and I was just sitting in meditation, and the robe was like France, like it just direct transmission, like it's time to pick up your pilgrim feet again and walk, take the robe to these sacred places. And so that was a part of that journey that I took last summer. Is I was there, I brought a robe for Missy. Another woman named Summer had a robe. I took a couple robes with me, and we walked in these sacred places with the Venus robe. I call it the Venus robe, but it's really connected to the rose lineage. The fact that the transit of Venus and Earth in an 8-year cycle make the cosmic rose really deepens into the rose lineage. And we're talking about these rose ley lines. Like it's all so intricately woven. So I had some pretty profoundly magical experiences, especially one at the Cave of Eggs with this robe. Like part of our work now, my husband and I, we have a shop here. I can put it here. It's shopanahata.com. There, it's in the we are in the beginning of creating a very beautiful online store that provides ritual items. This robe is one of them. We're going to be manufacturing a robe for the divine masculine.
Did you just put it in the comment?
I put it in the chat. Oh, nope. Let me go back.
There. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Jay. Scott has a question. When a man feels the goddess energy coming through his energy field, oh, you put it in the private chat. So go up to the comments at the top right, and then you can share the link with everybody.
Let's see. It's making me connect my YouTube for a minute. Sorry, read the question. I can.
Yeah, I can also just copy it.
Oh, I'm in. There we go.
Great. Yeah. So when a man feels the goddess energy coming through his field in order to support others, is that still considered the divine feminine, or is that the divine feminine being a carrier for the goddess? I would say right off the bat that the divine feminine is moving through you, that you also, and I know Scott, Scott well, we've known each other for many years, and I would say, Scott, that you carry a lot of divine feminine energy with you. You're compassionate, you're loving, you're gentle, you're kind. I know you're not those things all the time. You also have your masculine energy as well, but it's really important for men to understand that they also carry the divine feminine within them. The women also carry the divine masculine within them. It's not that we're one or the other. We carry more of one than the other.
I would say too that my husband, if he were sitting here next to me right now, his response to this would be, actually, it's through the divine feminine that the healing is happening right now. Right. And so as men, you get to open yourself to be in that reception of what the divine feminine, there's no hierarchy actually with the divine feminine. That's one of the challenges that the patriarchy has. That's one of the distortions of the patriarchy, is that there's this order of who can receive, and who's better, masculine, feminine, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, actually, when we open up and clear our field, we're able to move through and embody, hold within us, the frequency of both the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And through the divine feminine path, I've actually been able to do work to heal my relationship with the divine masculine. Right. I had a lot of woundings about the patriarchy and Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ and all of these different things that were told to keep me small. And I had to my pendulum swing really far over to where I was like, I already mentioned this, right? I'm not even going to look at anything from a male perspective at all right now. I had to swing. And now I've found this beautiful balance to where I actually have a really beautiful relationship with the divine masculine again in my life.
That you have the benefit of having a partner by your side who is also doing his work, who is also facing his shadow, who is also reverent to the divine feminine, right?
Yes.
Which provided the safety and the opportunity for you to be held by proper masculine energy that loves you infinitely, so that you could go through your journey to come back into balance. And that is, the some of us are just like, and we get stuck there if we don't have a healthy masculine to hold the space for us to be in the full surrender that the divine feminine is.
Yes, exactly. And it really has been my husband, in order for him to hold it, he had to soften and not put himself above it any longer.
He had to understand it within himself. What is the feminine? How does it work within him?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's all, that's what Scott is also speaking to. Maybe that is his divine masculine is a carrier for the divine feminine, also supporting his wife and his daughter. He has a boy and a girl. So he's in this place of wanting to support the divine feminine, where I hope he's okay talking about it, but he's in a very unique relationship where he's married to an Indian woman. And so the energy of India, right, is just so powerful and present. And the reverence of the goddess is quite present, right, in those lineages and traditions. I feel like an angel and shaman helping others, and whatever is needed, I allow it to flow. Have felt the goddess energy flowing lately, and it is being received. Lots of healing in our family. That's so wonderful. Yeah, if more men could be willing to be in their softness, the world demands men to man up and, forget about your feelings and stop crying, and it's like, actually, we need the men to feel. We need the men to soften so that we can relate. That we're not adversaries, right?
Exactly. One of the other things that really helped in our union was reassessing the balance in our partnership of our assigned roles.
Sure.
Right? So I really hold the mother and the nurturer energy. But my husband has really softened into being in that frequency too, but in a way that's true for him. And the oracular gifts that have awakened for me through my journey, through this initiation, through walking this path, through having the courage to like take my feet and go to physical locations to receive the activations, has been a gift of oracular astrology. Is being able to like see the blueprint and understand. And one of the other things that was really, really beautiful, the permission, when we know our blueprint, the permission that we have to then really step into the embodiments of that. My husband has his moon is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. It is the sign of the divine feminine. It is the sign of emotional intelligence, the womb, it's the lineage. So his emotional center is actually wants to be held by the feminine, right? And then his north node of destiny is also very close to his moon in Cancer. And so part of understanding his blueprint allowed me, the mantle of authority that came through this work. I've been able to just really directly transmit to him that the culture we came from said, you show up as the man and the husband and the provider in these ways. Right. But actually, his unique blueprint is to show up as the masculine and the male, the provider, but in the softness of the feminine. Like he has unique blueprints. So it's like, I wonder too, looking at our different blueprints, there's Vedic astrology, there's tropical, right. There's so many different ways in which we can read these energies. My preference is tropical astrology, and I do like the equal house system. But all of that aside, the point is by giving him permission to soften in his masculine and like know that that's where his leadership really lies. We work together. He works from home. He does all of the shopping. I joke because it's like he's my hunter. He goes and hunts and gathers. Nice. Right? But it's this really beautiful, like we're rising in our unique gifts, and there's a softness and a strength that's held when we honor the goddess. It was really different than our upbringing of like Heavenly Father and Jesus, and we don't really talk about the mother. And now we're like in the goddess worship and devotion and really deepening into Yeshua and Mary Magdalene and bringing our divine union. Yeah, I'm very satisfied and happy with my partnership now.
Okay. Well, maybe it would be beneficial for Scott to understand more of his own blueprint. He could have an astrology session with you. Yeah. Hint, hint, Scott. But, it really is, go ahead, put your website in there. It really is beneficial for everyone to develop a relationship with the divine feminine, to understand that outside of religious structures of control, there is the wholeness of you. Outside of the structures of telling you what to believe and how to act, there is actually freedom in knowing who you are and how you are and why. And all of these different medicines of your being. Yeah. So you're not putting in the right chat, babe.
It's not letting me.
No, you want to put it in the top right.
Yeah. I'm trying. Every time I try to leave a comment, it says it's failed to post.
Oh, okay. Well, I will post for you.
Yes, please do. Thank you. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So this link that we're just that Erin's putting in right now, this will take you to the magical story of us. This is our main kind of website, and it talks about a little bit more of the in-depth dive into like who my husband and I am, who we are. And then from there, there's different, like, if you kind of go to the side of it, it'll direct you to my astrological readings and offerings. We have a method that we call ritual shadow work, which is an astrologically guided shadow work. And we deepen. Once you know your blueprint, you can like follow the current astrological transits. And with the walking with the illumination of the moon and the lunar landscape, we allow the moon to illuminate the shadows, the things that we haven't been able to see about ourselves, really, because it's through the descent that we then can ascend. So we're in the process right now of actually writing this method into a book so that people can learn it and practice it in their own way. It's how we've really jumped timelines and transcended some really deep things. And so we help couples that are not, that really want to be in divine union, but might not quite have the lock-in with each other. Like we help them shed the layers through like personal one-on-one coaching, couples coaching. It's all like very astrologically guided. The astrology, the pillars of the work that we do are ritual and play, and then a deep connection to the cosmos through oracular astrology, and really seeing that we have gifts and challenges, the polarity within us as individuals and as in union and in community can really, it can be so insightful and helpful in showing us how to show up, how to how to like level up and become the embodiment of our highest expression, the embodiment of our higher selves.
In balance with each other, in reverence to each other and self. Yeah.
Yeah. And the places that we go around the world helps to activate and awaken. And so that's another big part of our message is like, if you feel called to pilgrimage, I got one in Egypt that a friend of mine leads, or if you're called to France, like, you know, I know, Erin, you're going to France. Yeah, right? Yeah. Like I've watched that journey. If you're called to Ireland or Scotland or, you know, it's like, let's talk, let's have conversations about the impact of saying yes to your journey.
Yeah.
Becoming the hero and the heroine of your own story.
Right.
Like, how do you do that? Well, you go on a quest. You treat life like it's this quest. It's this journey of discovery. And the best stories, like Frodo from Lord of the Rings, he had challenges, he had companions, he had a purpose, and he had courage to go, right? And so like in our own story, we have all of the same. And when we can begin to look at ourselves as the hero or the heroine, we begin to love the challenges in a new way and rise out of them into the embodiment of our destiny. We're anchored into like the safest place we can be is just in our own destiny.
Yeah, it can be a lot to step into that reality. You know, there's so much to kind of purge victimhood, you know, oppression, all of these things. It's really for people who are in full agreement of their victimhood, they have the hardest time of recognizing, oh, I'm the hero of my own story, right? There's often this projection of, you know, this teacher is my hero. I'm going to, you know, follow them because they're helping me without actually seeing that you're the one helping yourself. You know,
exactly.
And it can be really challenging to make that shift, to step into that wholeness of self. What do you know, how do you see the bridge that can help someone step from that place of being shrouded from their own freedom?
The bridge, that's a great question. I would say from my own personal experience, the moments where my bridges were created that allowed me to step from where I was small, into where I could expand into the truth of who I am, happened through my sacred yes.
What is your sacred yes? What's that?
Well, we kind of came about like this idea emerged in the beginning of 2022. And it's what gave us the courage. It takes courage. It's like, so if you're like, I think the astrology right now, I mean, we are literally within 24 hours of the exact conjunction of Neptune and Saturn at 0 degrees Aries, right? That's happening on the 20th, but like they're already there.
Right.
Right? So this is giving us, the cosmos are actually supporting this in a way that they haven't ever, and so we're primed and we're ready to like have that courageous action. But what, at the beginning of 2022, my husband and I had healed so much, and we were really deepening into our love and into like living the life of our dreams. But we realized that our dreams were still attached or connected to what we were given, like the programs from our culture of origin, and our just the way in which the way in which we were raised. I was raised to pretty much focus as a 14-year-old girl, as an 8-year-old girl, as a 6-year-old girl. It was like, your purpose, Carolee, is to learn how to make really good bread so that you can like make bread for your family, like you can be the homemaker. I was completely programmed to be the most epic trad wife. And I'm a pretty good trad wife, let's be honest. I call it trad witch wife now because I bring in all my magic and I still do my sourdough. Like before this call, I'm feeding my sourdough that starter this morning.
Oh, I need some of your sourdough starter.
It's so good, but like the point is what's our yes that's given to us from the culture, from the conditioning, and then what's our actual yes that's bubbling up from within ourselves.
From the freaking womb, too. Like,
yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is that we have to start listening deeper. Where we're constantly just like, I don't know, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What does my mind want to do? What does my ego want?
Exactly.
And it's like, no. What do you want? From this, the depth of your being.
Yeah. So at the beginning of 22, my husband came home from a men's retreat where he was doing some sound healing. And he said, we're going to do what we could. We're going to live this. We're going to live. He had read a book called Becoming. And in the book, the couple talked about what they did, what they called the full fuck yes. And he was like, we're going to live our full fuck yes. And so for us, what it looked like was we began to make a list of all the things that we wanted to do in our life, but we hadn't yet given ourselves permission because of our conditioning, because of our programming, because, in Mormonism, especially, I mean, and this can be like, it's not just unique to Mormonism. Okay. But like the timeline of our life pretty much looked like you get baptized at 8. If you're a male, you get the priesthood ordination at 12. You don't date till you're 16, but then even then you have to date not exclusively. But by the time you're 19 as a male, it's different now ages because they've changed things. But when it was my time, it was like 19 boys go on missions, 21 girls go on missions. Girls don't have to go on missions because you're actually supposed to be getting married by 21 if you're doing it right. If you're 25 and unmarried, you're a menace to society. This was the culture I was raised in. These were the beliefs that were like deeply programmed. I graduated from university unmarried. I felt like I failed my university years because I didn't get my MRS degree. There's a joke about BYU. It's brilliant.
Mrs. degree. Yeah. That's so funny.
So these are all the things. And then it was like, then you start to have children, you get married in the temple, you start to have kids, and then the cycle repeats. When they're 8, they get baptized, and then you go through all the motion, and eventually they're going on their missions. And then when you're old and your kids aren't there anymore, you get to now become senior missionaries for the church. So you go on another mission, right? Like my life was really planned out for me.
Yeah.
I only went to church universities. I didn't go to any other universities than the BYUs. I did some things like I studied abroad in Paris, but it was through a BYU study abroad program. Like it was all really within these constraints of the culture of my origin, which was pretty much my life. I couldn't even date boys that weren't Mormon because I was supposed to marry a Mormon boy.
I almost considered BYU because it's such a great singing program.
Mormons are really, the singing's a big deal. But anyway, I digress. Tangents here. But the point is in 22, it was like we sat down and we were like, what are all the things that we've judged? What are all the things that we've not given ourselves permission because they don't quite fit in this box and this prescription that we've been given for our life? And doing having a sexual re-education, deepening into sacred sexuality and that understanding, that was on the list. Yoga had been kind of my gateway drug into my own self-gnosis. I had, in the throes of betrayal trauma, and the PTSD that I had from the betrayals and how that wreaked havoc on my system, I had found therapy that was trauma-informed yoga therapy, and it was a container of women. And so I began to come home to my chakras and what was out of balance, realized the whole thing was out of balance. All my behavior was codependent. I learned what codependence was. I was completely the perfect picture of it and didn't even know what the word meant until I was like 36, and so it's like that bridge is maybe even just sitting down and being like, what are some things that are a yes for me in my life? Even if it doesn't happen tomorrow, what's a yes? What's that sacred yes? What's that holy fuck yes? And we made a list. And then we just started taking action when things came into our, we started to not be afraid of just taking action. We set that intention of like February of 22. By June of 22, we were selling our house and making plans to move across the world without even knowing what was going to happen. Yeah. Right. I'm not saying like, don't be dissuaded if you're like, I'm not ready to move to Bali. It doesn't happen like that for everybody, but that was us. We were being primed to call in the divine and seek guidance of like how we could change our life.
Yeah. And well, maybe it's like also another kind of way of doing that is, writing down the things that you've been denying yourself.
Yeah.
Things that, that you've been avoiding because either you're not ready or you're not worthy or, I don't know enough or, there are a lot of people are saying, well, once this thing happens, I'll be ready to, do this. We have to, throw that out and follow your heart's desire immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's a deep level of trust that gets asked of us because sometimes, the programming might say, I'll take the trip after I'm stable.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, actually, it's the activations of the journey that will
stabilize
the inner stability. Yeah. I'm deeply walking this initiatory path still. Like there's a lot of this that's really alive and moving in my system. And it's asking me to be like, honestly, everything around me, the world is in chaos. There's so much uncertainty right now. This is calling us into a greater level of embodiment into stability and security within ourselves.
Right.
And the way we find that is by facing our fears courageously.
Well, it's, one of the biggest things, I keep throwing out the word discernment, like there's a lot of through this like excavation and discernment. These are like the two theme words for me for the last like week. And someone was asking me, I don't know how to find my discernment. Like, I don't know. I know what you mean when you say intuition. and following your gut, right? But where's discernment?
Mm.
And the just the immediate response is in embodiment. It's literally in you being in your body and knowing your center neutrality, right? So that the body can become a pendulum of truth again. Because we're constantly pulled out of our own truth. I just saw 1444 on the clock. So it's like we're constantly in this being pulled out of our body, whether it's from trauma that's happening on the other side of the world, or trauma that, or corruption and violence that's happening in our cities or in our neighborhood, whatever it is. Or like, can we trust our spiritual teachers? You have to be in that place of knowing where your centrifugal force comes from, so that it's not being used against you. You have to come back to your own center. And that means breathing into your belly. If you're a woman, breathing into your womb. If you're a man, breathing into your testicles, like coming all the way down so that you can feel the base of your kundalini, where your energy is held and where it can rise from, so that you can hold the place of listening and responding instead of attack and like traumatic response, fight or flight, which is what is constantly happening to us.
Yes. And honestly, if it's hard for somebody to like access those depths, that we have been conditioned and programmed through the shadow of control, the shadow of the patriarchy. The patriarchy isn't inherently bad in itself. There's shadows and light to all of it, right? But like in my own experience, I couldn't access the truth within me because there were blocks and disassociations and points throughout my lifetime that kept me out here instead of in here. And so the work of healing is to call back the parts of ourselves that aren't in us. And then that helps us shed the layers of the identities that also aren't us to like bring us home into our body. I love how you brought all of that into like just that breathing into who we are. And honestly, I did a very like practice very similar to this in the fall of this last year. I felt impressed to shift where my 11-year-old daughter was going to school. Not that there was anything wrong with where she was at. It was a beautiful program, very aligned, great community. But there was this other opportunity 5 minutes down the road that was kind of pulling at me. And I literally sat, I like went to the TikTok psychics, and some of them give free yes or no answers to questions. My questions to them. Like I did all sorts of different things. And ultimately where I landed was I sat with myself and I asked my body, and I gave my body timeline A, and I felt my body. Because my logical mind was all over the place. Well, I couldn't make sense. I asked my body, timeline A, she stays. Timeline B, we go here. And I paid attention to the subtleties of my body's communication. And I could sense that there was less anxiety, less discomfort in the B option. And so I made a challenging decision that honestly didn't even make sense to my husband. It didn't make sense to my friends. I got pushback. People were like, what are you doing? It was like this kind of hot seat for a minute. But I was like, my body communicated to me, and I just have to trust. Yeah. And on this side of that choice, again, still both beautiful containers for her. I can see now very clearly that my body knew what I'd be going through. My higher self what's past, present, future. It's all just the now.
Mm-hmm.
And that this actually is where our whole family needed to be held in this moment. And so that kind of choice, that experience, that anchoring into, I made a hard choice. It didn't make sense to anyone, but my body told me, we need to get out of our mind and into our body. There's like that mind over matter. Matter is the mother. It's not mind over matter. It's like, let's bring the matter back and have it be at least equivalent or maybe over the mind. Get your mind out of it. It's like,
oh my God, you just totally unveiled that phrase for me. I didn't even see that. Wow.
Yeah, matter is mother. Matter is the main.
Matter is mother.
It is.
Wow. So it really is, just to kind of briefly illustrate what you're talking about, and like that, the pendulum of the body thing. It's like, a lot of people are baffled at the presence of Deepak Chopra in the files, right? And they're like, oh my God, and he was the one that opened this and helped me, da 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 da. And the whole time I was like, ooh. Every time I would see Deepak, every single time, I would be like, ugh. Just his energy always felt manipulative and greasy to me. I didn't need to read his books because I was put off. And I think, like, I have this awareness that people really do feel the repulsion, right? Feel the energy of like, my body says no to this, but there's a trend. This is a celebrity that I should be paying attention to. This person is saying something that other people are finding quite valuable, right? And they allow the mind to still go forward while the body is going backwards.
I actually have something else to add to that, if I may.
Yeah.
Being that I was raised in a high demand religious, like cult, for lack of a real better word of what you could say, like we were controlled about who leadership, you don't question. Right. We really, like, the Mormon prophet and apostles were celebrities in their own right. When you got to see them, there were these gurus. For those that maybe got sucked in to the realm of Deepak Chopra, that actually had beautiful activations or healing experiences, and now they're feeling the wounding of the fall of the guru, there's a deep initiation in what the illusion being shattered. It's actually a really valuable lesson, because we have to rise in self-governance, and we have to rise in sovereignty, and we have to make the choice to not outsource our power any longer. And so oftentimes, I experienced, I was under the authority of the Mormon church. Yeah. And I really put these men on pedestals. And now, because I know what it feels like to have my own shame over the giving away of my power, when I come into community, I mean, even since arriving here in Colorado, we had a moment where there was this community that we were being woven into. And then the person kind of holding it started to behave in a way that was like hierarchical and controlling. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I want community more than anything, but not more than my sovereignty, And so it's like, that's my invitation for anyone listening to this who might be like, but I loved Deepak. Take this moment to step into your sovereignty in an even more embodied way, and be like, oh, I know what it feels like to give my authority, to give my power to a guru. No more. It's like the awakening of the inner guru. And again, the astrology right now is really potent for this. We've got Neptune and Saturn in Aries, the divine spiritual warrior. It's the fact that all of this is coming to light, the people that we pedestalized falling. It's the cosmos are just shredding illusions about who has power and where that power comes from. But in shredding of that, it's inviting us into the sovereignty piece that is essential for us to be true spiritual leaders in what we're birthing right now.
Yeah. it comes back to that courage that everybody really needs to harness right now. Like this morning, I was on one this morning. Like I was like, I am so, I don't know, what's going on today astrologically, but I'm fed up. I'm fed up with people not using their voices. I use my voice constantly, and even if I'm just screaming into social media, at least I'm doing that. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to say like I'm better than other people who aren't, but I'm doing the thing that we need, you know? And uh, how can we move through this world seeing the amount of information that we're receiving, first of all, is violent to our systems, whether we're seeing violence or not. But holding all of this information that humanity is not used to holding and knowing about what happens around the world, so that's one onslaught. The next layer is the crumbling of the illusion of our structure in our society that's being run by these PDFs. And then on top of that, these governments that are held in these high offices and these manipulations through, whether or not it's through like Iran, through a theology or a dictatorship, or it's here with, putting like, we don't care. When Biden got into office, I would say the majority of the country knew that he was a PDF, and they still voted for him because he was always Creepy Joe. He was not called Creepy Joe for no reason.
He was so creepy.
And so like and everybody is like calling out, like, look at what he's doing, look at what he's doing, look at what he's doing in the Oval Office, inside, swearing in ceremonies where he's literally touching children on camera, and everybody's ignoring it. Like, this is it's atrocious. It's atrocious. And to say, oh, it's just the one who's in office now, like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. They're all doing this, and it all has to come down. And we, the people, have to do the tearing down.
Yeah.
European countries, other foreign countries are so bloody brave that they will go, like the French, they're fucking magnificent. The Italians, they go out into the street and they demand change, and Macron is like, oh, you can try all you want, I don't care, like, because he's, he's part of the New World Order. But there are like the power of humanity is like, this is the time where we have to, you're talking about personal sovereignty. We need to talk about collective sovereignty. We need to be talking about our true power is not in our vote. It's in our voice. It's in our bodies. And it's in our reclamation of our spiritual authority. And my voice is strong. I have a strong personality to begin with. I have a trained voice, so it's like, and I have Sagittarius rising. I'm a Taurus. I'm ruled by my throat. My North Node is in Leo. I don't mind getting out in front and saying, guess what, MFers? This needs to stop, and you have to raise your voice. And if I have to pull you off the fucking couch so that you will say something, even if it's just to say #free Iran, you did that. You cannot stay silent anymore. And if you're picking sides and you're saying, oh, I'm doing this because we want to save Gaza, but we're not going to worry about the theological dictatorship in Iran because you don't get to choose anymore. Humanity is humanity. And we're all here to help each other, no matter where you come from, who you are, what the oppression is. Now is the time to rise up. Okay, that's my... I can't stand it anymore. I can't.
I mean, but there's so much truth here. Like, honestly, it's not everybody's path. It's not everybody's blueprint to like use their voice, but what is everybody's what everybody's being called to is to find and discover your truth. Mm-hmm. What is your ultimate like knowing? This wishy-washy one side or the other, trying to appease and make people happy. Like, we are healing collectively. Chiron's been in Aries, the sign of the self. The opposing energy is Libra, people pleasing. Like, we can't this space of people pleasing any longer. And so like the cancel culture of, if somebody says something that I disagree with, now I'm not friends with them anymore. Like, we need to rise in our uniqueness too, and be willing to like say what we feel, and then be wrong, and then be right. Yeah. And, you know, like one of my favorite things to say is before I like go into a big tirade or whatever, I'm like, I reserve the right to be wrong.
Yes.
but this is what I feel right now. Like, this is where I'm at right now. This is, but, you know, it's time to like stop pedestalizing our leaders. It's time to stop going along with the crowd. There's so much that's been subtly in the programs from the media that we consume. I don't even have a TV in my house. Like, my kids don't watch TV. Yes, we do streaming services sometimes on our projector. But like my younger ones, like they're even in like some of like the cocoa melons or some of the ways in which the subtle stuff is being like subtly planted into children's minds. Like, it's time to be free from all of that. It's time to like cleanse our systems. You know, it was my youngest, who's 5, hasn't actually ever received a single vaccination.
Yeah. Same.
And she traveled the world, and we were okay. Actually, her spirit is so alive. It's like, what are all the things that we've been told to do to make everybody else feel comfortable? Actually, this is the time frame in humanity where the comfort, I feel more comfortable being with somebody who can boldly and proudly declare their knowing, even if I don't agree with it. I much prefer radical truth than let's go along and keep up with the Joneses and try to pretend. I'm not about pretending. I'm about depth. I'm about conversation. I'm about transcendence. I'm about polarity within. We got to own our shadows. You know, in some ways I joke with my husband. I was like, you know, because we're all about astrology over here and we know our blueprints. And so we talk about it all the time. Yeah. When I'm particularly fiery, I'm like, babe, you know me. I just got a bitch blueprint. Like, stars.
I probably have a bitch blueprint somewhere too.
You know, it's kind of a personal joke, but like, yeah, I mean, this is the other piece too, is like the permission. Where have we been not giving ourselves permission? My Aries sun is in my 10th house. And if you do anything with like houses, the 10th house is legacy. It's soul work. Like, I'm actually really meant to the program that was like, your purpose is to be a wife and a mother. I'm a Cancer rising. So I naturally like homemake really well and tend to my space. But my soul identity was crushed by my culture of origin. It didn't let me discover who I was really meant to be. Right. And so we're waking up. We're like giving ourselves more permission to shine in our radical truth. Like me or don't. I don't need to be liked by everybody. You know, and it's time for that radical honesty and radical accountability. And then it's also time for radical responsibility. Responsibility is our ability to respond. We can't accomplish what we're here to accomplish if we're all in reaction mode. We can't react. We have to pause, breathe, respond from truth. And in that space, the divine transmission comes through, and using our voice and using our body and using our, you know, like our message to really impact. I want a better world for my children. It's scary. I don't know what kind of world that they are here for, but also I trust in their blueprints. I trust in what energies and frequencies they carry. My children are incredibly magical beings, and truly all of my healing began through my womb, through carrying my kids. I could not hold these divine angelic beings
Got a big old shiver.
without my own frequency shifting. I was still Mormon when I had my first and my second and my third. The fourth came after we had completely separated from the church. But I walked with my pregnancies in high consciousness, even within that paradigm. I had all home births and the portal of, it's interesting. Astrologically speaking, we just had a solar eclipse that was called the Ring of Fire. What else is called the Ring of Fire? Oh, when you're about to have the baby, like the crowning of the baby is the Ring of Fire. So we're in a birth portal right now, and eclipse energy can be chaotic and crazy and intense. I've already cried a couple of times. It's
I know. Before this, I had my husband holding me while I was
yeah.
I'm feeling so much today.
We're in a new beginning was seeded with this new moon, and we're about to come to the ending of the eclipse portal with a full moon, right? And that's kind of helping to clear out. Essentially, the way I look at it is that Ring of Fire solar eclipse is the birth portal, and labor is painful. Labor challenges us and takes us to our edge. And right now, we're all in this sort of wave of things really shifting. And whatever comes up, whatever beliefs, whatever challenges, whatever comes our way in this eclipse portal, we will be able to use the full moon on I think it's the 3rd of March.
Yeah.
To finally say goodbye. Okay, I can see what's in the way of this new beginning, and so it's this volatile time. The other thing too, it's we need to deepen in our trust of divine timing. We've been so accustomed through fast food and instant gratification to think that things have to happen fast. My initiation was years.
Right.
I dedicated 13 moon cycles to the goddess, offering my blood, offering that. And that guided me into sacred lands in France, that guided me to ancestral lands in Scotland, that guided me into wells of healing to heal the sister wound. During that 13-month initiatory period, I also participated in a priestess container, like an ancient mystery school that was held in the Siwa Oasis in the Sahara in Egypt for 11 days, was in that. All of these came, I trusted, and I said yes. When I set the intention to have my own initiation, to deepen into this path, it's not just going to come by a weekend retreat and all of a sudden, oh, I'm the red-hooded priestess now, but we can feel the call, and we have ancient knowing that awakens within us when we say a yes to this path. And so I walk deeply, intimately with Mary Magdalene, and with the divine feminine, and with the goddess, and it directs my path.
Yeah. And
it's not an easy path, but nothing about life feels easy right now.
I want to say we do not have to devote ourselves to the priestesshood. We don't have to devote ourselves to a lineage in order to have our empowerment, our embodiment, and our awakening. Having a relationship to the goddess in all of her forms is always a personal journey and experience. In my mentorship program, of course, I refer to it as the priestess path because that's how I know it. That's how I see it for myself. But over the last 9 years that I've been holding this space, a whole spectrum of labels and non-labels have been anchored for each individual to be true to themselves, to accept the medicine, the journey, the information in accordance to their template, their blueprint, right? And I think that that's the real magic of Mary, is that she doesn't ask for your undivided attention. She doesn't ask for you to be completely devoted to her. She asks you to be devoted to love. She asks you to be dedicated to the unveiling that comes from being dedicated to love, you know? So it's almost like I want to be like, you guys don't have to do this. You don't have to do what we're doing. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to do it in the way that Carolee, oh, she's gonna write a book about this, because oh my gosh, what a powerful journey that you've been on. But to say that, like, all you have to do is recognize that you are in a mundane place and that you don't want to be anymore. And that will open up your, the new beginnings that spirit has for you, whether that's through the divine feminine or the divine masculine, the shifting that can happen within, that's necessary, that's already happening, whether you like it or not. It's happening to you. It's happening to everybody. So as we close this delicious conversation, I want to also, just return to the themes of courage and being your own hero and being truly willing to new information, new light, and being willing to look at the places in your life where your reality was created for you and it might not serve you.
Yeah.
And Carolee, in closing, would you please offer a prayer?
Yes, I would love to. Yeah, let me put on the hood.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she's for. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Erin, for this opportunity to be here. May we all be held in divine love as we deepen into our own personal journeys, and know that this path isn't about becoming something than who we already are. It's about remembering the ancient codes that lie within us. It's about awakening to our true sovereignty. May the angels, may our guides, may Mother Earth and Father Sky hold us in our work that we're doing. May we deepen into purpose and find greater heart coherence. May we be protected from all of the darkness that wants to take our peace away from us. May we find the parts of ourselves that have been lost through our lifetimes, through our pain, through our trauma, through our generational trauma. May we heal to a deeper layer, deeper levels, and find greater embodiment, so that when we listen, when we receive, when we witness the chaos in the world, we can rise above it and hold our brothers and sisters in divine love, and truly know that we are all walking each other home, connected to the divine destiny together.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you so much, sister. Thank you for coming and sharing your medicine. And are your are your robes also accessible through the Magical Story of Us?
The robes
are the Anahata link.
The shop Anahata.
Right.
Shopanahata.com. The Anahata collection is our online store that we're going to be having. We're currently working on an incense tray right now as well, and then some other products that are like consciously created to support us in ritual. Like I was telling about this robe, I wear it in prayer, I wear it in meditation, I've worn it doing yoga, especially yin yoga. It's nice. I've worn it in moments of divine union connection with my beloved. I've worn it on pilgrimage. I won't take it off when we're done with this call. I'll go, heat up my coffee. Wear it as a robe around the house, right? Yeah. So it's like everyday use and also ritual and ceremony. And that's kind of the whole point of our Anahata collection store that this is the first piece of. So yeah, you can find it. There's all these stories, beautiful pictures of priestesses wearing the robe all around the world. Yeah. Some testimonials of what it's like to experience. It's a frequency holder. And so, Shop Anahata is where you can see the robe. The Magical Story of Us is where you can learn more about mine and Britain's story, what we've transcended, and then also connect with us for any of our offerings. We do a lot of work helping, especially pretty much everything has astrology informed. And then we also guide and offer ritual guidance and support. So if you've never held a moon ritual before, if you've never kind of deepened in that, like we really help get that ball rolling and give that kind of experience and doing it in alignment with the cosmos. So
wonderful. Thank you, Scott. Scott says, thank you both and the goddess. My heart feels stronger and I am more aware how to support others. I know some people are going through things Carolee has already passed through. It was helpful. Very good.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Well, we give great thanks to the Divine Mother for bringing us together in all of the ways that she does. And we thank the Divine Feminine and Divine Masculine for the union within us and the clarity around us. May we continue forward on our paths, connected to Source, connected to ourselves, and deeply connected to the heart. And so it is. Thank you, everyone. We release you. Stay if you will, go if you must. The link will close. Have a beautiful day. Thank you, Carolee.
Thank you, Erin.
Bye-bye.
Bye.